Hello, everybody. It's Andrea Black. I am back with another episode of my podcast, and my podcast is all about personal and professional development. This topic is something that I have been really working on. It's something that took me a long time to even realize and recognize. And ever since I did realize what was going on or what I was doing, I have been working to change it. So, this episode is about changing your personality or your actions or what you say depending on who you're with. So, are you changing who you are depending on the people that you are with in any given moment? So I'll just give a little background about myself. I used to be a really happy, carefree person. I knew who I was. I wasn't afraid to be myself. And I was like this through elementary school. I was quirky. I knew I was quirky. I had quirky, fun friends. And I feel like a lot of people are carefree when they are in elementary school because it's a small group of kids. You're so young, you're still innocent, and you haven't really been exposed, hopefully, to any or a lot of negativity in the world. You haven't been exposed to people who can be really mean. So when you're that young, you kind of can't help but to be yourself, which is wonderful. I admire that in kids, and I miss that. So all of this I had, and I just remember being very happy and enjoying my time. And yeah, I went through, tough elementary school things, but just normal stuff. And overall, I was just very content. All of this changed the summer before I started middle school. So where I grew up, middle school started in 7th grade. My dad had become very sick, and it was out of nowhere. We didn't know. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what happened to him, but all of a sudden, he was having a hard time walking, balancing. Then his speech started to deteriorate. His body started to become paralyzed. And we had a lot of tests done, and things were just coming back normal. All the results showed nothing. But we knew something was wrong because it was obviously getting worse every single day. And so finally, a brilliant doctor diagnosed him. It's called progressive supranuclear palsy, or abbreviated PSP. It's an extremely rare neurological disease that has no known cause and no known cure. So, as you can imagine, it was traumatizing. I experienced and saw a lot of things that a child of that age doesn't normally see or, shouldn't really be exposed to. I mean, it wasn't any of our faults, but I was very young to have gone through something like that. It's never fun at any age, but he had this disease for a while. It was a very slow process. It took a couple of years to take his life. And so he passed away in the summer between 6th and 7th grade, so right before I went to middle school. So all of these traumatizing events that I witnessed, along with me, getting crazy teenage hormones and transitioning to a bigger school, all of these factors combined really took a toll on me mentally, and I lost that happiness, I lost my self-esteem. I lost my ability to be myself, unfortunately. I just wanted to be liked by everyone. I wanted to fit in. At the time, I didn't know that I was doing it. I wasn't aware of the fact that I was doing it. And so, of course, I didn't know why I was doing it. But looking back, I remember very vividly that I would change my personality depending on who I was with. So some examples of this are I would change my sense of humor, like the types of things I would say, the jokes I would say, depended on who I was with. If I were around people that were, kind of raunchy, I would say raunchy jokes, things that we were so immature we thought were so funny, like, haha, penis, like things like that. If I were around a different crowd who was more serious, didn't joke around about that kind of stuff, more conservative, that's how I would be, because I didn't want to say anything that would upset them and ostracize myself. My interests would change. I would pretend to like something that someone else liked, or I would convince myself that I did like this thing, even though I really didn't. I didn't have any fun doing it. It's not anything in particular. It could be anything, like spinning around in circles until we got super dizzy. I remember doing that with my friend, and I'm like, hey, she loves to do this. I don't understand why, but she does it, so I'm going to do it. And I would change like my hobbies. I would, depending on who I was with, if I were with a group of people, I'm not trying to be mean. My cat is coming up here. I am so sorry if you hear her. I'm going to try to keep her quiet. Here's my cat. She's huge. So I would, if I were around people who their priority wasn't doing well in school, let's say, or if they just naturally weren't good at intellectual stuff, I would kind of bring myself to their level. I was a very intellectual, I'm saying how smart I was and I can't even say the word. I was a very intellectual child, and in middle school, I just kind of pretended to not know the answers to things if I were with people that didn't know the answers to things, just to fit in. If I were in a group of people like in honors classes who were really intelligent and didn't mind being themselves and showing their intelligence, that's how I would act. So those are examples of things I would do. As I got a little older, I would do things that, typical peer pressure things like drinking, smoking. I'm not going to go into much detail about that, but it exists, that peer pressure exists, and whether I wanted to do it or not, if someone else is doing it, I felt pressure to do it, so most of the time I would. If my group of friends that I was with weren't doing those things, I would be completely fine not doing them because I wanted to just fit in. So what was the result of all this? Well, my goal was to have everybody like me. And even then I knew that that was a pretty tough goal to achieve. Not everyone's going to like you. My goal was to have a ton of friends, fit in everywhere, be really well liked, be popular, fit in amongst the popular crowd, but also fit in amongst the not so popular crowd. And so the result was that I did have a lot of friends, but it was very hard to maintain these friendships. I remember having to make decisions on who to hang out with. I had all these friends, but they're all from different groups of friends. And so on a Friday or Saturday night, when everyone hangs out, all of these groups of friends are going to be hanging out. Well, which one do I choose? Multiple groups would invite me. Well, which one do I choose this week? And so if I said no to one group of friends, that sometimes would decrease the likelihood that they would invite me the next time. And so it was very complicated, very stressful. I also lost my actual identity because I was being so many personalities depending on who I was with. I didn't have like a personality disorder, but I would just be changing things about myself to fit in, to the point where I wasn't even sure of what I actually enjoyed anymore. And if I was sure of it, I was scared to show it because I didn't want someone to make fun of me. Oh my gosh, Siri, I'm not talking to you, girl. Hold on a second. So I lost my identity. I might have been at a party surrounded by a ton of people who were my friends, but I would feel alone. And I didn't know why, but now looking back, I know that the reason is because, as cliche and corny as this sounds, I wasn't my own friend. I didn't know or like myself. So it didn't matter who I was with. I felt alone. I felt out of place, like I didn't belong. I didn't know who I truly was. So, or when I did know that I enjoyed something, or, I liked something, I would fight against my true self for fear of what people would think. So this continued on into my adult life, and I would continue these sorts of habits outside of work and at work. And I have just learned that being someone else, depending on who you're with, will not turn out well in personal, work, or family settings. It's not going to turn out well. You're not going to be happy. You may be pleasing others, but what about yourself? And no matter what you do, I also found was, even though I hung out around all these groups of people and would change my personality depending on who I was with, some people still didn't like me. So, you can't have everybody like you no matter what you do, so you might as well be yourself. So my question to you is, do you still find yourself, even as an adult, a grown man or a grown woman, doesn't matter how old you are, do you still find yourself changing who you are depending on who you're with? So I'm going to talk about this in your personal life and professional life. As an adult, are you still close with or hanging out with people, even sometimes, who haven't really matured or changed since school? So if you are doing this, especially frequently, this is going to hold you back in life. I think, unfortunately, negativity is louder, and things that aren't so positive are going to stand out more. If you are a really good person, but you hang out with people that aren't so good people, the tendency is that you will become more like them. That's saying you are who you hang out with. So are you spending your free time doing things that you don't even enjoy, hanging out with people that you don't even really like just because they asked you to? For example, I would do this with, say, like workouts. There was this girl who I met in this exercise group, and she asked me to rock climb with her. And so at that time, I had been rock climbing once, and I hated it. I love being active, but I really hated rock climbing. I feel like I'm trapped, just stuck to this wall, and I can't even use many muscles except the ones in your forearm, which I feel like is the most awkward body part to work out. And so I just felt like I was hanging there and so weak and couldn't use the muscles that I actually think are very strong. And so I just hated it. And I thought, okay. First of all, she's a nice girl and I should, just hang out with her even if I don't like it. And also maybe I should give rock climbing another chance. Like that was a couple years ago. Who knows? I might like it now. I don't want to just quit on it. Well, nothing changed about my feelings towards rock climbing. I still hated it. I hate the soreness the next day. Oh, I just hate it. Even if I did well at it, if I managed to get to the top. So I don't believe I told her that I hated it. I think I was just like, yeah, that was great. And so she thought I liked it and asked me to do it again. So I went again with her and I hated it again. And the point I'm trying to get at is if you try something multiple times and you just don't like it, it's not for you, that is freaking okay. I love working out. I can do many other things to work out. I don't have to go rock climbing. I don't have to. But for some reason I felt like I did. If you go to places that you don't really like just because other people invite you and they like them. Like for instance, for me, I can't stand clubs. I don't like just like dancing where a bunch of other people are dancing and just screaming and I can't hear anything and it's just not my vibe. I love music. I like to dance and be silly, but I don't know. The whole like people grinding thing, like random dudes grinding on you and stuff, definitely not a fan of that. But I would still go and I would put on this outfit that I never would wear, like this skimpy dress and these heels. I hate heels. I'm so clumsy. I can't even walk in heels. And so when I would go to the club, I would just be miserable and I can feel my feet getting these blisters. I know they're probably bleeding, but I'm being so cool. I'm at the club with my friends, dancing, having a great time. So I would put myself through this torture. I don't really like staying out late, but I would do it just because of who I was with and they would stay up late. I'm an early person. I just find myself very productive and happy in the morning. And so I was going against who I naturally was, just to please people or just to be like people, even into adulthood. So if you're doing this kind of thing a lot and you're spending time with people you don't really jive with, or you're doing things that you're not really into, we're adults now. Luna, chill. It's probably the FedEx truck. She knows the difference between all of the trucks, and she particularly hates the FedEx truck. So, God, Luna, you made me lose my spot. If you are doing these things, you are just, at this point in your life, wasting your time and wasting your energy. Because I'm sure you have a lot of responsibilities in your life, and your free time is precious. Like, it's meant for doing things you love, things that bring you joy, with people that you love. It's meant to recharge you and like fill your tank back up so that you can take on the harder responsibilities that come with adulthood. Your free time and the things you do and the people you do them with it's not supposed to drain you. If you are finding yourself unhappy during your free time, what's the point of it? You're just going to burn out in all areas of your life because you're never getting recharged. It's kind of the same in your professional life. This one's a little tricky because to some extent, many times we do need to be a different version of ourselves in the workplace. Like, normally we can't walk around swearing and yelling and being our complete funny selves because you have to have professionalism and get the job done. But you still shouldn't let that professionalism completely change your personality. I believe in having fun at work as long as the job is getting done and it's getting done well. But if you're somebody who does like to just go to work and it's part of your personality to go to work, get it done, go home, and live your life at home, being more of yourself, being sillier, whatever, that's totally fine. But if you feel like you are holding yourself back so much at work and you can't be yourself at all, and you're just like so bored or you just feel unfulfilled, then that is a sign that you are changing your personality too much for the job that you're doing or the people that you're around. If you find yourself taking place in gossip at work, it happens just like it did in school. There's a group of people, they gossip, they're loud, talking crap. If you find yourself hearing this and being brought into this in the workplace, it's kind of the same. Got to be careful. There might be a part of you that wants to join because just like in school, it's maybe a group of people at work that are thought of as the fun people or, I don't want to say popular, but you kind of want to hang out with them because they seem to be fun. But just be careful. If you find yourself talking crap about other employees or getting into this workplace gossip and it's not positive, just be careful. Even at work where you need to be a little bit different, make sure you're not changing your personality to get along with your coworkers. If your job doesn't align with who you are, like not just the people you work with, but if the job itself doesn't align with who you are, I recommend looking elsewhere. I did this to myself quite a few times. One example is right after college, I graduated with a degree in nutrition. And right after college, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we decided to get away and move to North Carolina. I'm sure I'll talk about this in another podcast. But we decided to just completely, get a change of scenery, kind of go off on our own and try to figure out who we were in this world. And so I was also very uncertain of where I wanted to take my career. While I was trying to figure all this out, I needed a job. We just moved and I needed some sort of income while I was figuring myself out. So I got really desperate, really scared, really frantic, applied to a bunch of places, and the first place that I got offered a job at was Cracker Barrel. I used to go to Cracker Barrel when I was little and we would travel to like Hilton Head and it was a great experience. But it was kind of ironic that after graduating with a degree in nutrition, the first thing I do is I end up working at a Cracker Barrel, which if if you don't know like how their food is made, it's nothing is healthy. I don't care if you get vegetables. They're not really vegetables anymore. So, because of how they cook everything, the things that they would sell in like the store part of Cracker Barrel, it was all like all the food items, all the candy. Like I was reading the nutrition facts because I knew all that stuff now. I just graduated college with that degree. And I was just like, oh my God, like chocolate and candy in itself isn't the healthiest thing for you. But if they could make it worse for you, they did. I mean, trans fat galore, so much added sugar. It's already sugary enough. It's chocolate. And I'm like reading these things, horrified by them. I mean, I love chocolate. I like to have treats every once in a while, but it was not the place that anyone would envision me working at. So I should have quit. I was miserable there. And in fact, I was also getting bullied there, and I was putting up with it. But instead of quitting, I stayed for a lot longer than I should have. In the end, I don't remember how long I worked there, but it was way too long. And I do remember I finally had enough and I stood up for myself. But my version of standing up for myself, it probably wasn't as extreme as I could have gone. But it was, an accomplishment for me. And I found a way better job. And I was a lot happier at my next job. But the whole point of this is, in your professional life, if you don't align with the people's views that you work with or their personalities, you don't have to pretend that you're like them. I know you see people you work with, unfortunately, more than you spend time with your family and see your family a lot of times, especially if you're working full time. So you want it to be an enjoyable experience. You want to get along with your coworkers. But if you're not, you can't get along with everybody if you can't be the same as everybody. I'm not saying that you should completely cold shoulder someone and say F you and not talk to them, but you don't have to change who you are. Same with the job. If you are at a job that you're miserable at, I can pretty much assure you that you can find a job that is more fitting for you. I feel like this is such an old school concept. Maybe because of the Great Depression, or people thought that they needed to stay at a job even if they hated it because we have to work to put food on the table, which is true. But there are so many opportunities out there where you can put food on the table by working at a job that you actually enjoy. But I feel like this mindset where you have to stay where you are because it is a job and that should be enough. You have to stay there until your retiring age. If you love it, I agree with that. But why say, ooh, I worked at this place for 40 years. I hated it, but I worked there for 40 years. Why is that number, that big number, the most important part? Why is it so important to say that you stayed at the same place for 40 years? Shouldn't the most important parts be that you were happy where you were and that it was allowing you to support your family? Not just that it was a job and you stuck it out. So just because you leave something doesn't mean you're quitting. In a sense, you are quitting your job, but that doesn't have to be a negative thing. I believe that if you leave a bad situation because you're trying to find a better one, congratulations for quitting. That's awesome. So that was my spiel about when your job doesn't seem to align with your values. So now I want to get into the signs of how you are changing your behavior or your personality or not acting like your true self. And if we are all adults here, we should be our true selves at this point. I feel like a lot of adults into their old age are scared to act like themselves out of fear still, because of this, need to fit in, or this fear to say what you really think, even if it's in a respectful way. I feel like fear holds a lot of people back from being their true selves and doing what they truly want to do. So, here are some signs that you may be hiding or changing who you are. If you are constantly feeling anxious or uneasy in certain places or around certain people, or when you're doing certain things. So this is a lot of these points that I'm making are going to have the words like constantly, consistently, because if you're nervous doing something for the first time, that's normal. If you feel uncomfortable doing something that you haven't done before, that doesn't necessarily mean you should never do it again. It's just if it's a pattern and you consistently don't feel comfortable doing it, that probably means that you don't like it. So why would you keep doing it? This is something I've had to rewire my brain. It's just something we learn. We just get used to being uncomfortable. We get used to living in discomfort, but that shouldn't be. So anyway, if you're consistently feeling anxious or uneasy in certain places, around certain people, or doing certain things, you're probably fighting against who you truly are. Hold on. I have these all written down, so I don't want to miss any. Let me make sure I have my spot. Next one. You're consistently saying things you wouldn't normally say in order to be more like the people you're with. So if you're doing this all the time, it could be a sign that you are pretending to be someone else that you're really not. I'm not saying that if someone tells a joke or someone says something that other people find are funny, and I'm not saying you should just stand there and be like, that wasn't funny, that was horrible, that was stupid. You are just not funny. Like, I'm not saying you need to insult the person. Sometimes it's better to just be like, oh. But if you constantly are then saying things that they say all the time, that's something different. If you are doing something and you are constantly looking at the time and thinking, I don't know if I just said words. If you're constantly looking at the time and thinking about how much time you have left before you can leave, that is usually a sign that you are not enjoying yourself. I used to do this a lot. Looking back, when I would hang out with certain people, it would feel like a chore. It would feel like something I had to do, and I would just be like, okay, it's 2 hours, let's go. So then I would go and just be like, okay, I only have 1 hour and 45 minutes left. Okay, 1.5 more hours to go. If you're constantly counting down the time, it's probably something you don't want to be doing. And if you're an adult, you don't have to be doing that stuff. I understand, like, you attend an event and sometimes you have to do things for other people that you just don't want to do, but it's being supportive. You attend an event. That's fine. You think the event's boring? You're kind of counting down the time to when you can leave or to when you can eat or when you can go to bed. But if you're doing this all the time, regularly, in your free time, just to please other people and do what they want to do, you don't have to be doing that. If you find yourself not feeling any joy or feeling down or feeling irritated, then you're getting cranky, not just because you're hungry or tired, maybe, but if you're constantly feeling this bad mood around certain people or doing certain things, it's not just your fault. It's what you're doing or who you're with. If your smiles and laughs are fake or forced, like I said before, if you have to just like laugh something off just to not make someone feel bad, that's fine. But if you're hanging out with these people a lot and you're constantly like smiling at something you actually, or laughing at something you don't actually find funny, that's not a good time. If you hear your conscience speaking to you like, you shouldn't be hanging out with these people, or you shouldn't be doing this thing, and you kind of like feel in your gut that it's wrong and you still do it, that's a sign. Don't ignore your conscience. Your conscience, it's usually the good guy. If you find yourself being nervous or doing like bored tics, like my tic when I was bored or nervous, anxious, just wanted to get out of somewhere or leave the people I was with, I would tap my leg up and down. I would tap my fingers. I would do these little fidgety things. I mean, it's hard for me to sit still no matter what I'm doing, but these things would happen all the time when I was with people I didn't want to be with people I didn't really get along with, or doing things I didn't really want to do. If you find yourself looking for a dopamine rush from another source to kind of help yourself get through something, like if you are hanging out with people that you don't really align with and you find yourself like eating a bunch of food, drinking a lot, just to kind of alter your state of mind, get that dopamine rush from the food, then that's a sign that, like, I know, hey, I love to eat, I love a good drink, even when I'm with people that I love. But if you're only turning to those things to make yourself feel better because you're not feeling comfortable, then that's a good sign that you are in a situation where maybe you don't have to be. Like I said, if it's a one-time thing, fine. But if you're spending all of your free time doing these things you don't really enjoy, you shouldn't be doing that to yourself. So, saying no, setting boundaries, staying true to yourself, all of these things are very hard. But as we get older, it's really important to start doing them if you haven't done them already, because you are going against who you really are just so other people either like you or just to please other people. I was a huge people pleaser. It's great. It's a great quality to want to make others happy. But if it is at the detriment to your own mental health or physical health, if it's something that you are constantly doing just to make someone else happy, I think you should evaluate if it is worth it. You may get some pushback, but in all reality, who cares? If someone pushes back because you said, I don't really enjoy doing this, or that's just not my thing, I've tried it multiple times, I'm just not into it. I know the things I like, I'm not into it. And if they keep trying to pressure you, they're just trying to get you to do something so that, it benefits them. That's very selfish of someone. I wouldn't do that to somebody. So it took a while for me to realize it. And it took a while for me to stop caring if I hurt someone's feelings or bum someone out because I don't want to do something. You can still be friendly with them. You can still be cordial with them. If you have to see them, if you work with them, that's fine. You can still do your job. but you need to be able to set boundaries, because at this point in our lives, we should know what we like, we should know what we dislike, and we shouldn't have to consistently do things we don't like just to make other people happy. And if someone wants to do something and pressures you to do something, even though they know you don't like it, is that someone you really want in your life? So I felt compelled to talk about this because it is something that I feel has really shaped my self-esteem and my mindset, and my habits. I think that a lot of people do live in this fear of being their true selves, just because of maybe some situations or experiences they had growing up, and their self-esteem was affected, and it's just become part of how they are. So I've realized these things in myself. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to be my true self. I've done a lot of, self-evaluating. I've done a lot of soul searching. I am figuring out who I really am, what I like, what I don't like. I'm trusting my instinct. If your conscience or your gut is telling you, like, I'm uncomfortable, there's probably a good reason. So I think that it's important to be more intuitive and to listen to what your conscience or your gut, your intuition is telling you. So I also always think about this now that I have kids. I would not want my children to fake who they are to please somebody else. I want my kids to be themselves. If someone doesn't like it, we'll work on it together. We'll work on, yeah, it's disappointing that this person doesn't like you, but it's okay, because you don't like everybody, and they're okay. Doesn't mean you have to be, purposefully mean to somebody. But I do think, as adults especially, we should not be torturing ourselves by spending time with people we don't align with, or doing things we don't align with, or changing our personalities in order to align with someone. So if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about this, I'd be happy to. It's a topic that is very, very important to me. And if you like this video, or if you like my other videos, please subscribe. Please share this with your friends, your family, and I'll be back soon with another podcast. Again, I'm Andrea Bleck, and I hope you have a beautiful day.